All right, everybody, we'll call this meeting to order. Welcome to the July 25th, 2023 City of Knoxville Beer Board. Hello to all of you here today. Mr. Johnson, will you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Fugit.
Here.
Councilwoman McKenzie. Councilwoman Parker.
Here.
Councilwoman Ryder.
Here.
Vice Mayor Alberto.
Here.
Councilwoman Singh.
Here.
Councilman Smith. Councilwoman Testerman.
Here.
And Councilman Thomas. 7 present.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the June minutes?
Move to approve.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. All right, today's agenda includes 6 beer permit applications and 7 addendum items, but first we do have an order of business to conduct addressing a new state law that took effect on July 1st. I trust all of you read Mr. Frost's email that the new state law requires the opportunity for individuals to make germane public comments related to the current meeting's agenda items. For the record, I would like to read the proposal. So Mr. Frost, Mr. Byrd, Mr. Johnson, and myself discussed that proposal and then open the floor to any discussion or questions. The requested proposal is that before the first beer application request is heard, that the beer board take up public comments that are germane only to the items on that day's agenda. And at that time, all people, not the applicants who will still speak when their application is called, who have signed up to offer germane comments on an agenda item would then speak. Based on, I think we all know, we believe it will be very rare that someone actually does speak. So we can comply with the new law by offering the comment time at the beginning of the meeting and then continue with the meeting procedure that everyone is accustomed to. We're recommending a limit of 3 speakers per agenda item during the comment period at the beginning of the meeting with a 2-minute limit for each. And I know that Mr. Byrd, Mr. Johnson, they'll handle sign-ups, but I wanted to see if Mr. Johnson, if you wanted to discuss kind of the cutoff times and the details of that discussion.
Thank you. The cutoff time that I had envisioned would be the same that we have for City Council. When the meeting is called to order, that's when the cutoff time would be. That's what we had discussed.
But they could call or email Mr. Byrd
Yes. So prior to the meeting, they could call Mr. Byrd's office before 4 o'clock. Is that what? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Before 4 o'clock, they could call the revenue office. If they don't meet that time, they could come up to this desk and speak with me and sign up before the meeting begins.
So, anything to add, Mr. Byrd?
Nope, that summed it up nicely.
All right. Any questions or discussion on what's being proposed? Okay. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second. All right. Ask if any further discussion. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so moved. Thank you for that. So at this time, I'll ask if there's anybody here that has any germane comments they'd like to make related to today's agenda. All right, seeing none, let's get started. When I do call the name of the business or organization applying for the permit, please come to the podium, state your name and address clearly for the record. And then applicants who are approved pending final documentation need to bring their completed documents to the business tax office during regular hours, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. And applicants who have their permit approved tonight can pick it up at the end of the meeting. So first up, we have Dash and Go. Welcome.
Is it on? Is it on?
It is on.
Hi, I am Tamerlyn Harper with Dash and Go Convenience Store. It is 2128 East Magnolia Avenue here in Knoxville, 37917.
Okay. Anything you want to share about this new business?
No, not at this time. It's very new to me, so I'm trying to figure it out. This is not my first business, but this is the first convenience store I've ever put together.
Okay, Sergeant Coward.
No applicable record.
Mr. Byrd?
We need a copy of the sales tax registration and approvals from the building inspections and fire department.
So the inspections, so we got I think it was the building inspectors that came by. They told us only thing that I needed to do was put the exit sign up and the fire extinguishers, which I have those. They also told me they were going to come back because they said they've never seen anything like this before because it's actually a store that you drive through. So they were going to bring, I think the man that had come said this was normally not his route. So he was going to get, I guess the inspector that actually does that to come back, but they haven't reached back out to me or come back. They told me to meet them there after I did the CAS class. We had a time, but of course, that didn't happen. As far as with the health inspection and the other inspection, I was confused on, they told me I could draw up the documentation as far as, I guess, how the building is going to be set up or layout. I was confused on that. I called 3 times, but luckily today someone came out and actually helped me draw up those plans. So I have that. I can submit that in the morning. I didn't know I was missing anything else.
The sales tax registration from the Department of Revenue.
Okay, so just a copy of that? Okay, so I have that as well. But like I say, I was very confused on drawing up plans. I've never done that before. In previous businesses, we always had to get like an architect or somebody that knew about that. But when I spoke to the lady on the phone, she said I could do it myself, which I've never done that. So I was totally confused. I tried it, didn't know what I was doing. So I started seeking help. And luckily today's, a friend of mine came and helped us do that, so.
All right.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve pending final documentation.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. All right, good luck.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Marble City Market. Welcome.
Andrew Wolf. My address is 1317 Bradford Lane.
Okay, and you've got several coming up here, so we'll start with Sergeant Coward.
No record.
Mr. Byrd.
The file is complete.
Nice.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Okay, 6C is Frank and George's. And Sergeant Coward,
No record.
Mr. Byrd.
That file is also complete.
Move to approve. Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. All right, and at 6D, also Frank and George's. Do we have Sergeant Coward?
No record.
Mr. Byrd.
This file is also complete.
Terrific.
Move to approve.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so moved.
All right, thank you.
Good luck with everything.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, 6E has requested a deferral to August 22nd.
So moved.
All right, all right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so moved. 6F, Hyatt Place, Knoxville.
Kimberly Gallo. My address is 1423 Dutch Valley Drive.
Okay, Sergeant Coward,
No record.
Mr. Byrd.
We would just need building inspections approval and then surrender of the existing permit.
So move to approve pending final documentation. Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so moved. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our addendum items. First, we have Crafty Bastard Baker Creek.
Hi, I'm Aaron McLean, 2320 Jefferson Avenue.
All right, how's it going?
Well, it's, as you might know, 71 South is already open, Bear Paw Bikes is already open. Yeah, it's a nearly 100-year-old building, and there's been a lot of drywall and old floors and a lot of unanticipated things. Yeah, we're just a couple of weeks out, I think. But given that it is a nearly 100-year-old building, I would like to request for 90 days. Basically, all we're lacking is fire inspection, health department, like the things that you need to actually be open. So,
All right, Councilmember Ryder.
Well, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve, or motion for a 90-day deferral. Extension. Mr. McLean, this is your third location, right?
this is correct. Yes.
Yeah, I just clarifying West and Emory Place and this one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's slightly different than the other one. The first two have brewing operations, and this is more like a satellite tap room, but it's going to pair really well with the mountain biking and the food and all that good stuff. So we're excited about it.
So this is in the same building of Fly by Night. What's it called?
Oh no, so that's the same ownership team. That it has Highwire Brewing Company and
Yeah.
Fly by Night
Fly by
and
Night.
Threads and what's the thing? Redbud Kitchen. Yeah, so that's one building. No, this is the where the Baker Creek trails are. The city's putting in that big pavilion and all the
Oh,
stuff.
where
Yeah,
Severe
the Baker
Heights
Creek
used to
Trail
be.
complex. Yeah, so it's an old building there that's been vacant for almost 30 years. And yeah, they renovated it, and a couple businesses opening and more on the way.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. All right, good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have Diddy Market.
Hello, my name is Love Patel, and I'm coming for 3700 Willow Springs Road, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay, so I will just point out we've had 9 extensions and we're 2 years and 9 months into this. So how's it going?
So we're like about done. We're like 99% in, but the thing is, we're waiting on our architect because he messed up on the drawing. He put motion lights, and we needed normal lights, not motion lights, and he said he's gonna change that by sometime next week.
Sir, do you know your permit number or your building number? Because I would love to look that up. See the.
Permit number.
Yeah. Do you? We can confer after the meeting if that's easier. If you
All
want to
right.
hang out for a little bit, I'd love to get some information from you about the building permit, so I can go in the system and see the comments from the staff.
All right.
Okay. Well, I don't have my light on, so.
All right.
So we made a motion to extend for, I guess, 90 days in May. Okay. So you're waiting on you already have your permit, or you don't have your permit?
We don't have our permit yet.
Okay. You guys did voluntary fingerprint checks again, I think, at some point.
November.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
We did.
November? Okay. Can we do a 30-day extension and see where we're at in 30 days?
Okay, I've got a motion for 30-day extension. All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so moved. Okay, Ian's Market and Aroma Express has actually picked up their permit. Actually, JMC Smoke Shop has picked up their permit. So next up is Orange Hat Brewing East.
Good afternoon. Brian Hatmaker, 721 Timbercrest Drive.
All right, how's it going with your project?
We've had a few change orders, but things are progressing finally. So got the sheetrock up this week, so we're heading in the right direction.
All right,
Just need a little extension.
90 days? All right.
September, October's our projected.
All right, Councilmember Ryder?
I'm sorry, that was on from last
Oh.
time, but I'll make a motion to extend 90 days. It's 6 districts, so.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck. Next up is O'Rourke's, who has actually withdrawn their application. And then finally, the yacht has picked up their permit. So, which is, I don't recall that ever happening before, which is nice. So that, seeing no further business, we are adjourned.
Good evening. It's 6 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We will start with an invocation led by Council Member Singh, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Council Member Thomas. Please rise as you're able.
We gather here today to make decisions for our community. May we use only our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral as we consider the merits and pitfalls of each matter that is placed before us, and always act in accordance with what is best for all of our communities and our fellow citizens.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, would you please call roll?
Councilwoman Fugit,
Here.
Councilwoman McKenzie,
Here.
Councilwoman Parker,
Here.
Councilwoman Ryder,
Here.
Vice Mayor Roberto,
Here.
Councilwoman Singh,
Here.
Councilman Smith, Councilwoman Testerman,
Here.
and Councilman Thomas.
Here.
8 present, Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a motion on the minutes from our last meeting?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Are there any items to be withdrawn? Are there any items requested to be postponed? Are there any items requested to be added by motion? Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, time now for my mayor's report. The first 2 items I wanted to share with council members signify that for some members of our community, summer is winding down despite the weather. It does seem to be the end of summer, particularly for kids in school. So first up, this is the final week for our Summer in the City program. 21 students from across our city have been taking part in this 8-week paid program. And this year, our Summer in the City interns were placed in more than 20 departments, worked our kidorific events, and even assisted with Parks and Rec's first teen-only Aspire camp. This Thursday, the interns will be giving their final presentations on what they have learned in their 8 weeks with the city. But if you ask me, I know we have learned just as much from them as they have learned from us. So I invite council members to come out this Thursday at noon at the Public Works Building. It's always a fun celebration to see the city through the eyes of our interns. And some of them may eventually end up joining the city in the years to come. So hope you can join us. Before that, we will wrap up our Kidorific series with a final celebration in World's Fair Park, and that's tomorrow morning. This free, family-friendly event kicks off at 10 a.m. and runs until 1 p.m. So many thanks to all the partners who've made this season another huge success. Before we move on, I want to take a moment to recognize someone special to our city and our region. This year, Stephanie Brewer-Cook, is she here? There you are. Stephanie Brewer-Cook, our own ADA coordinator, is celebrating 25 years with the city. In addition to this milestone, Stephanie will be receiving a special lifetime award from the Disability Resource Center at their ADA celebration this week. Stephanie serves as the city's American with Disabilities Act coordinator and heads the city's Disability Services Office, which supports all city departments in improving access for people with disabilities. Stephanie also plays a key role in coordinating the Mayor's Council on Disability Issues, which is on our agenda later this evening, of which there are several current and future members here tonight. Thank you for being here, members, future and current members of CODI. Stephanie works diligently to make our city a more accessible place for every resident and visitor, and we are very proud of her work and her 25 years of service. Please join me in giving Stephanie a round of applause. Finally, a quick reminder about our rules of decorum. Those who wish to speak either to a specific agenda item or during public forum should sign up with the city recorder, Mr. Johnson, ahead of time. And council rules state that up to 3 people each may speak for or against an agenda item. And right now, there are a couple of agenda items where more than 4 people have spoken up. 9A has more than 3 people signed up to speak in favor, and so does 9B. And 11B also has more than 3 people signed up, and 11R has 4 people. And so council rules say that 3 people, so I encourage those people, if you can huddle up before these agenda items come up, I recommend that you coordinate and confirm which 3 speakers you would like to prioritize on this topic before we get to that item. Please do not use profanity, and when speaking to specific agenda items, please remember to stay on topic. Those who fail to adhere to these rules may be ruled out of order and asked to step away from the podium. For those who are listening, please note that you may not disrupt a public meeting from the audience, and those who do may be asked to leave. Thank you in advance for respecting these rules, and that concludes my mayor's report. Are there any reports of council members? Vice Mayor Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to let everyone know that later this week, Councilmember Fugit will be celebrating a birthday, so just wanted to say happy birthday in advance. Also, consistent with a resolution that was unanimously passed by this council, members of City Council and the Knox County Commission will be having a joint workshop on Thursday, August the 3rd at 5 p.m. here in the large assembly room. I wanted to let you all know that we also reached out to the state delegation, and members of the state delegation also wanted to attend. So we'll be having them as well as we did the one we had about a year ago. So just wanted to put that on everyone's radar, and we're looking forward to a very good discussion. The only other announcement I wanted to make was, if you weren't aware, or watching at home or here in the audience, there are city elections coming up, and before our next meeting on July 31st, that's the final day to register to vote for the primary election. So just wanted to remind everybody to take advantage of that and let your voice be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Thomas.
Yes, just a shout out to the people at SEED. Since our last council meeting, they opened their first energy efficient home on Texas Avenue in Lonsdale. It was attended by several people of the city staff, and it's really good to have that first one done, and hopefully there will be many more of these. And they found a most appropriate residence, and the key was passed off to them. And so this is all good news, and I commend Seed and J.D. Jackson and Stan Johnson and all those other folks that are doing good work on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember McKenzie.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to take a moment to recognize the passing of former County Commissioner Thomas Tank Strickland, who contributed so much to not only the city but the county, continued to serve on multiple community advisory boards, was a founder of the MLK Commission and other initiatives, and also was the first African American, and to date, I think still the only African American who has served as chair of the County Commission to this point. And so just want to recognize his passing. His services will be Friday from 11 to 12, the receiving of friends, and at noon, the funeral service at Overcoming Believers Church. And if we may, I'd just like for us to have a moment of silence in his memory. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
I just want to remind everybody the KTA board will meet this Thursday at 3 o'clock in this large assembly room. We will review the final draft network of CAT Reimagined. I'm really proud of the staff and the progress they've made to incorporate 10 significant changes since the first draft network. So there's still public comment options available. Obviously, that meeting is open to the public, and it'll be again this room on Thursday at 3 o'clock.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 8.
8A is a resolution approving the appointment of members to the elections, and the election of officers for the Mayor's Council on Disability Issues.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Could the members of Cody please raise your hands if you're here? Thank you for being here. Thank you for the incoming members. We really appreciate your work. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
9A 9A,
Just get a little closer. Try again. Okay, I can read it. 9A, an ordinance, I should have brought my glasses, an ordinance to amend the Knoxville City Code Appendix B zoning code Article 11 off-street parking to clarify when recalculation of parking is required to remove the 50% rule which creates an undue burden on redevelopment in areas of the city with existing lower property values, and to remove Article 11.1.c City of Knoxville applicant. Is that on? Okay. Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. A few people have signed up to speak to this. First is Mr. Parker Bartholomew. You could come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and you will have up to 5 minutes. Whose are these? You need to speak closer into the microphone. Hopefully it's working.
There we
Okay.
This one's working.
Okay.
All right, Parker Bartholomew, 5406 Summit Ridge Lane, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37921. This packet, I'm going to reference some of it during this. I think it's important to discuss how we arrived at the 50% threshold. The packet, the first 10 pages of this packet is every single property in the Bearden overlay. I was only able to do Bearden. And then there's columns that talk about some of the items that the 50% references, and then Recode actually added some more stuff to this. But as you can see, there's 5. Base dimension, frontage standards, lighting, parking, and landscape. I think it's important to note here that landscaping is only one piece of what we're talking about with the 50% threshold. The highlighted properties are where there was either no conflicts or one conflict. Anytime you pull a building permit with the 50, and you go over the 50%, we would be required to bring all of these up to code, which is a major problem. As this was getting implemented, on page 10, you can actually flip ahead. It's the one that's tabbed. The percentage of parcels just in Bearden, where there was only one or no conflicts, is only 24%, meaning that 75% of the buildings in just Bearden alone means that you'd have to bring all that stuff up to being once you go over the 50%. If you flip to page 1, you can see a property that we redeveloped right before the ordinance came into being. So this is the survey, and on the next page, you can see the build to lines, setbacks that were brought into being because of landscaping or other items. And as you can see, the lines go through the building, eliminate almost all the parking. And so this building was a travel agency, an aquatics store, and a butcher shop. It's now a mortgage company, a medical clinic, and a donut shop. The ordinance would have prevented that redevelopment without variances. The variance process adds cost to the owners and workload to the planning department. Variances should be the exception and not the norm. The ordinance, the 50%, has made variances a requirement on most existing redevelopment. In Bearden, the property owners and business owners have a fighting chance due to the mathematics of the ordinance. It's easier for higher value properties to stay under the 50% threshold when making incremental renovations. In areas of town where the property values are lower, these areas include Broadway, Clinton Highway, Chapman Highway, the Magnolia Corridor, and Central. We're placing a burden on those who are less able to absorb it. We are hurting the areas that need the most help when redeveloping. Many parcels cannot be developed until the parcel can be purchased for land value, and this is not a healthy cycle. Forcing site changes on existing buildings is a major problem, and that's what the 50% threshold does. You're trying to renovate the interior of the building, and now you're forced to address the site, which you're trying to squeeze a round peg into a square hole. It just doesn't exist because you cannot adjust the amount of area you have on the site without making major changes to the building. Since this is the second reading, some of the council members had some comments that I want to address on first. Councilwoman Parker asked that if we would end up with lower quality developments. And it's not a question of quality. It's a question of being able to develop. The inability to develop is the worst thing you can do for an area. The ordinance as written now creates a lesser quality development because owners or tenants stay under the 50% and do not change the use. An example of this is that we're currently dealing with is the Advanced Auto on Magnolia. No significant changes can be made to that building without triggering the ordinance. It is set vacant for multiple years. The newly vacant CVS on Broadway is in the same positions. Councilman Smith, you are correct that the engineering challenges and it's something that needs to be continued to be modified. The 50% threshold requirement is usually the first domino that triggers engineering and other items. Section 11.1.B.2 needs to get interpreted. Change of use is a domino that's early in the process as well. Councilman Thomas, in your district, a school was not permitted to go into a church because this ordinance combined with change of use. It's perhaps more shocking than the example of the soccer facility on Broadway that's now a cannabis store. It's not about trees and landscaping. This ordinance has prevented redevelopment that's needed and beneficial for our city. Vice Mayor Roberto, you referenced the change of use, which is another development challenge and one that we need to look at. Both change of use and 50% threshold are damaging the city. However, change of use is a much more complex problem. 50% threshold is the low-hanging fruit that we can deal with today. Change of use.
Mr. Bartholomew, your time is up.
All right, thank you.
Next person signed up to speak in favor of this is Amy Nolan. Ms. Nolan, if you could state your name and address for the record, you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Sure. Amy Nolan, Knoxville Chamber, 17 Market Square, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37902. Yes, I very quickly want to reiterate the email that I sent council member earlier this week and reiterate the Knoxville Chamber's support of the administration's proposal. This is an issue that has been cited repeatedly as a barrier to redevelopment in the past 4 years since the new zoning code was adopted. The example that Parker gave, I think you would find many in the real estate community that could give examples like that. As it stands now, the ordinance really contributes to inequity and blight in areas where the underlying property values do not support costly modifications to parking lots that are already safe and functional. And not only can the administration's proposal stimulate much-needed redevelopment of existing businesses, I want to emphasize we're talking redevelopment of existing buildings, but it can also serve to stimulate owner-occupied small businesses and small-scale developers that are vested in their community's success. An argument could be made by us that parking and landscape regulations remain too stringent, but the administration and hopefully the council understand the need for compromise to move forward. The city is increasingly celebrated as a great place to live, work, and play, and we need to ensure that that entire community is participating in the renaissance that we all enjoy. For those reasons, we hope you will vote yes on 9A and B. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person signed up to speak is Hanson Sale.
Good evening, Council. Hanson Sale, East Tennessee Realtors, formerly CAR 609Y Scarborough. I'm also speaking in support, and I don't want to reiterate too much of the memo that we sent to you earlier this week, but we very much support this change. This was a really good faith effort on behalf of the administration to compromise. It is fundamentally a compromise. There are things in this proposal that are alleviating development challenges, but we also added new things that will require basic landscaping in certain circumstances when we wouldn't have had that otherwise. So this is fundamentally a compromise. As I said in our memo, there's a really big disparity between how much you can spend on the same building in West Knoxville versus, deep into South Knoxville. And it can be the same building, and we're discriminating, in effect, based solely on the value of the underlying land. And so that directly creates an incentive for developers to focus on high land value areas that typically tend to be the areas that are already ripe for development, that developers are already jumping to get to. So this is eliminating that disparity, but also compromising a bit to ensure that we continue to have good regulations. I know I've heard it said that we don't want more seas of concrete. I think it's important to note that is not what we are talking about. We are not going to get more seas of concrete from this. This is just allowing somebody who, for example, if you want to redevelop a property, I mean, the practical implications, if you want to redevelop a old motel building into a housing, 50-unit housing complex, today, commercial lending is really challenging to get. It's a really, really tough economic environment. And, it's not inconceivable that you can only get financing for the building. So the practical implication of the policy now is we're going to take a step back and say, no, we love that you're going to reuse, adaptive reuse, change this into housing. But, yeah, the parking lot doesn't look nice enough. So, yeah, we can't do it. That's the practical implication of what the policy is now, and I think we need to look at priorities. Should we prioritize, reusing our vacant buildings, or should we prioritize getting it all done at one time? So I think it's just lastly important to note that even some of the most important laudable policies come with trade-offs, and in this case, a policy that was designed with good intention to expedite the improvement of our parking lots has come at the expense of making it more difficult to develop, oftentimes and most frequently in the areas most in need of redevelopment. So I guess we should ask ourselves, has perfect become the enemy of good? With this particular rule, I think so, and I hope you will vote to approve the change. It's a big step forward for the development community. Thank you.
Thank you. There's one person signed up to speak against this, is Joyce Feld. Ms. Feld?
Thank you. My name is Joyce Feld, 1540 Aguila Avenue, Knoxville, Tennessee, and I'm here tonight as president of Scenic Knoxville. The amendments that you have before you are commendable, and they deserve to be passed tonight. However, Scenic Knoxville believes that they still leave some problems unsolved. And to repeat, and for the record, we think that we need to, number one, offer relief to properties of lower value so redevelopment is not overly stymied, while at the same time, we need to require some landscaping because these same areas of the city both need and deserve increased tree canopy. And two, we need to require larger properties that are more likely to be corporately owned or owned by large developers to add landscaping when they do significant renovations that don't trigger landscaping under the amendments as they are currently proposed. We are, as you all know, in the midst of a global record-breaking heat wave, and one step Knoxville can take to mitigate this is to plant more trees. The Advisory Committee for the Urban Forest Master Plan, of which I am a member, is strongly recommending more tree planting on private property. The amendments before you, by relaxing the landscaping requirements under certain circumstances, unfortunately do the opposite. Several of you have expressed support for Scenic Knoxville's goals here, and we hope that you will continue to support this work and to continue to work with us so we can bring back to council modifications that are acceptable to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fugit.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate everybody's comments. I'm the one that asked for this postponement because, as you know, when we talked about it 4+ weeks ago, there was this tension between landscaping and development. Scenic Knoxville worked on an amendment, had some good things to it, but it would be not an amendment. It would be a total, it would have to go back to planning, as I believe I discussed with our attorney, Mr. Frost. Is that correct? So right now, what we have before us is this. I plan to support this because I do think that we need to see if it spurs development, but I would very much like to go on the record that I would like a report back, I hope my colleagues would too, from the administration in 15 to 18 months of what has this done, has it made it better, and at the same time continue to look at working with Scenic Knoxville and the urban landscape plan to deal with the issues that Ms. Feld mentioned. But I do plan to support this tonight.
Thank you. And Ms. Fugit, if I'm still mayor in 18 months, I will be happy to provide such a report. Vice Mayor Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to support this on second reading as well. But this is not an easy decision. In fact, it was quite a difficult one. As you weigh through this, certainly my review of it, what I see here is the need to make sure that we're equally redeveloping in all parts of the city. And it is certainly easier to meet the 50% threshold when you have a higher property value. We don't want to have a disparity or to disincentivize folks from redeveloping in lower value properties right now. We need to have that happen all across our city. That is also weighed against the need for high standards. And I think we do want to have high standards. We're not going to get where we want to get to as a city if we don't have high standards. So those are the two things that I struggled with. And at the end, where I came down was that the worst of these two is not making sure we're developing equally across the city. So that's why I'm going to support this. What I do see, though, is that a need for having high standards, and I'm glad to hear Councilmember Fugit talk about revisiting this, because I think we need to. We want to make sure all development everywhere in the city has high standards. And so what I think we might need to look at is if there's some type of an incentive program that we could use to raise that up. And I know that was mentioned as well. So I do plan on voting for this. And there was a lot of consideration. I'm sure you all have done the same. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Councilmember Smith was next, and then Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor. I too plan to support this with some mixed emotions as well, but I'll start with where I ended the last meeting with thanking Mr. Ahrens for bringing this forward and recognizing a barrier to development in our community, thinking it through and making progress instead of being stifled by these same challenges. I also just want to add, as we talk about the future changes that we might consider, is that I think parking requirements are staring us right in the face as an answer to reduce those, both allows for easier redevelopment requirements and also adds more green space and takes away from the seas of concrete that Mr. Sale referred to. I think Mr. Bartholomew, thank you for this homework, this chart. And I think the most no's, the quick spot check are related to parking. So I think, again, reducing parking minimums or, dare I say, removing them all together, I think is something that we should really focus on. And agree with my colleagues' comments around not maybe, yes, a report in 18 months would be useful, but the tree canopy master plan and other bodies of work in flight should allow us to chip away even before that report and then another analysis, and now we're 2 years away. So I think there's progress to be made beyond this, but this is progress indeed, and so I thank everybody for meeting in the middle.
Thank you. Councilmember Thomas.
Yes, I have a question and some clarification. I think it was Mr. Sale that I most likely would want to answer this question to. And my question has to do with we're eliminating certain requirements that ensure more, I guess, human scale parking with landscaping, et cetera, like that. And that bothers me a whole lot. But I think I heard Mr. Sale say that there were also some additions that would come along with this as it's on the agenda right now.
Yeah, I walked down here to say I don't have it in front of me, so I'm gonna defer to Aaron.
Yeah, thank you. I think our staff can answer that question.
That's fine.
Ms. Gill or Peter Ahrens, I don't know if you can answer. What?
See Peter coming down.
Yeah. Mr. Ahrens, if you could address Mr. Thomas's question, please.
Good evening, Peter Ahrens, Director of Plans Review and Building Inspections. Some of the concessions that we worked with Scenic Knoxville is additional interior islands at a rate requiring more of them than is currently required. In addition, in other situations, we would require landscaping in a buffer yard that isn't necessarily the full width. So even if you don't have that 6 or 10-foot width, as long as you have the soil capacity, we would require additional landscaping. So it is a true compromise. You know, we're recognizing that some existing parking lots are designed and constructed a certain way, and to redesign those would be a great hurdle. And on the flip side, in compromise, we're requiring additional landscaping in other areas.
Thank
Does
you.
that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
It does. This really does concern me a whole lot. There was a lot of work that was done earlier to address the problems with the parking lots, with the, you know, lack of trees and ocean of concrete that we all know. And, you know, we've talked about how, you know, being perfect shouldn't be the enemy of doing good, but I'm not asking for anything perfect here. I'm just asking for improvements over what we have. I'm concerned that eliminating these rules without having something else in place to shore up the other need that we have here, which was the reason these rules were put in place. I don't like the idea of deleting them altogether without having something else to mitigate the impact that eliminating this 50-cent rule may have. After listening to my colleagues and listening to Scenic Knoxville, I'm going to go ahead and vote for this, but what I'm hearing is that this is not the end of the discussion, because I worry that we actually are taking a step backward from what previous policymakers had worked hard on and thought was a better city for us. So it bothers me that there's a elimination without something else that kind of assesses the original problem. I think I am going to, it's hard for me, I think I am going to go ahead and vote for this, but this is with the understanding that I want the door left open to this issue. I want Scenic Knoxville involved again, in line with Councilperson Fugit's idea about we really need a review of this and see how it's working and have these parties to discuss it, because it's not a small item. It has to do with quality of life. And, you know, the other thing, we're talking about economic development in areas that may be unfairly impacted, but I think it, you know, goes without saying, those areas also deserve as good a guidelines and landscaping and heat reduction that any other place in the city does. So those are the things that we need to weigh out. We need to make sure that even if we are allowing more economic development or encouraging it in places that don't have it, that we also ensure that they have proper guidelines.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryder, then Councilmember Parker.
Yeah. So I think it's important. First off, I want to say I appreciate Scenic Knoxville, Ms. Feld, and Mr. Aaron's work on this. And Ms. Feld has proposed some good ideas to look at maybe getting more tree canopy in the areas where we have these underdeveloped properties, because that's really kind of the crux of the issue. We have parts of town where you just don't have vacant properties, and you have parts of town where you have vacant properties. Councilman Thomas and I are very familiar with Broadway Corridor. We've spent a lot of time before we were on council working on some of the problems we have there. We have the old Kroger that's not moving. We got the old Kmart. We got the old Food City. Now we've got the old CVS. We have the old SunTrust. The First Tennessee is going to become a cookout, which is a change of use. So they're going to completely tear, this is not about landscaping, they're going to completely tear out the entire, all the driveways, all of everything. Not landscaping, all the driveways. That is really what we're talking about here. But with the change of use, they still have to comply with everything. So I think what's important to know is that this ordinance change is only addressing few small things, low-hanging fruit, so to speak. We've had properties on the Broadway corridor where landlords have turned away change of use because of all the parking lot changes it triggers. They'd have to tear out the driveways, they'd have to tear out the existing islands, they'd have to tear out the existing lanes and rebuild entire parking lots. That's a lot of waste and landfill, and they'd rather sit around and wait. If they bought the property on the cheap, they'd rather sit around and wait for a same use. So when we talk about the CVS property, what's the likelihood that's going to become a restaurant? Probably not. It's going to be retail. Maybe we'll get another cannabis CBD store, because that's what happened with the paint store. It had to be retail. The soccer team, the after-school youth program had to leave because they were going to have to tear out all of the parking lot. Ms. Feld came up, and Scenic Knoxville came up with some potential amendments. I think the thing is in going through some of those amendments, like to do it by size, when we went and measured your McDonald's, your Wendy's, your Sonics, they all fell well below that. And so that wasn't an equitable way to do it either. If we were trying to say your chains with your deep pockets, they were all going to get by and not be able to do it with the potential amendments of dividing it by 10,000 and 20,000 square feet. So I feel like we can keep working on this outside of passing what we passed tonight and come up with a different way to get more tree canopy, whether that be changes in the tree ordinance or changes in section 12. But I think this is going to allow a few things to actually happen. There's just been some small business, local businesses that have really struggled to even make their projects happen because of change of use, which we're not even addressing, and I don't know what all that entails, so I'm not going to take you down that path tonight, but I appreciate Mr. Bartholomew bringing it up because that's where we've lost several leases. In fact, one of them was a nice, good employer that was going to come to Broadway in a building that I know we would have all been excited to see them come there, but the change of use was going to trigger a lot of really expensive parking lot changes. And so the landlord was like, no, I'm not interested in you. So, I want to see some of these vacant properties in play. And I'm not saying that we have to have low standards, but we have to have some reasonable way that there's equity in developing them. And what we had on the books was not getting us there. So I'm fine with going and trying to figure out a way to address the tree canopy through some other means. Thanks.
Thanks. Seeing no lights on, we'll move forward to the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9B is an ordinance to amend the Knoxville City Code Appendix B zoning code at Articles 12.5 and 12.6, parking lot perimeter landscape yard and interior parking lot landscape yard to provide language that is consistent with the proposed changes to Article 11.1, off-street parking, and to correct section number references to correspond with the proposed changes to Article 11.1, City of Knoxville applicant all districts.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. There are some people signed up to speak in favor of this. Mr. Bartholomew?
I'll be real quick on this one. Everything that you all mentioned about dimensions is this right here. And you can have interior landscape if you're willing to reduce your drive aisles. You can have trees inside and do all that. And I've spoken with city engineering. They're not prepared to give a dimension, but they're open to that. So on this, as you're looking at what's next, changing the parking lot, the driveway dimensions, where they're located, and drive aisle widths, in interior drive aisle widths, you can pick up 4 to 6 to 10 feet when you combine them, and then you get interior landscaping. You get trees in the middle of parking lots. It is that simple. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Next person signed up to speak in favor of 9B is Amy Nolan. Ms. Nolan? Okay, she's moving on. Ms. Feld, you've signed up to speak in opposition to this? Okay. That concludes the people signed up to speak to item 9B. Council members, any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9C is an ordinance to close the portion of Eakers Road fronting parcel 109GE029 and authorizing the mayor to execute quitclaim deeds to the adjacent property owners, Lisa Oliver, applicant, First District.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9D is an ordinance to close the portion of Riverside Drive from the southwest corner of parcel 096-01104 to where it meets Crease Road, and to close Crease Road in its entirety, and authorizing the mayor to execute quitclaim deeds to the adjacent property owners, University of Tennessee applicant, 6th District.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9E is an ordinance to change the base zoning classification for property located at 1909 and 1915 Hoyt Avenue from RN2 District to RN4 District. Zachary Tetley, Nexus Partners LLC, applicant, 4th District.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9F is an ordinance to change the base zoning classification for property located at 3705 Valley View Drive from RN1 District to RN3 District. Juan Hernandez, applicant, 4th District.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9G is an ordinance to change the base zoning classification for property located at 1902 Forest Avenue from O District to RN6 District. Gordon Smith, applicant, 1st District.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9H is an ordinance to change the base zoning classification for property located at 0 Sturkey Street from IG District to IMU District. Franco Iracoze, applicant, 3rd District.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9I is an ordinance to change the base zoning classification of property located at 0 and 112 Shipman Drive from RN4 District to O District, leaving all special purpose and overlay districts unchanged. David Buckner, applicant, 5th District.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11A is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a 10th amendment to the operating contract with the Public Building Authority and the Industrial Development Board for the Downtown Cinema Incorporated, document number C-07-0191, with respect to the property management of the Downtown Cinema, to extend the services for 3 additional years at an annual cost for the first year of the extension of $66,713.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11B is a resolution respectfully requesting Knoxville, Knox County Planning to consider and make a recommendation to City Council regarding the elimination of the special use requirement for duplexes in RN2 zoned districts.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Council members, we have several people signed up to speak in favor of this. The first one is Amy Nolan. Ms. Nolan, 11B.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I just want Amy Nolan, Knoxville Chamber, 17 Market Square. Thank you for allowing me to express the Chamber's support of this resolution that's asking the Planning Commission to study whether to allow duplexes in the RN2 zone by right. I want to commend the administration and council for their work on affordable housing. That work has primarily involved tax abatements and cash subsidies and efforts really to push the private market to create more affordable rental properties. This resolution, I think, really is intended to allow the market to create more housing without those incentives. It removes the barrier of making it a special use. Duplexes are an increasingly attractive housing option for both young professionals and senior citizens. They are not a silver bullet, but they do represent an attractive and an affordable option between apartments and single-family homes. We call that housing mobility, and it is intrinsically tied to economic mobility. And when we talk to young professionals, we have a program called Home Sweet Career where we go on campuses and talk to younger professionals about making their home in Knoxville. That issue of housing mobility is top of mind for them. And ironically, what's also top of mind for them is, can their parents move here? Will their parents have a place to live here? Which I think is really kind of one of this interest in being communal is, again, something that has happened after pandemic, but it's a question that we get a lot. Duplexes really fill a niche there. My understanding is, and Director Brooks will correct me if I'm wrong, that there's been about 24 requests for duplexes in the RN2 zone, and all have been approved. What we don't know is how many applications were not filed because the property owner did not want to spend the hundreds of dollars and months on something with the risk of being rejected and having nothing to show for their time and money. I know we can't answer, there's going to be lots of what ifs tonight, and we can't answer all those what ifs, but the Planning Commission and making this a priority for the Planning Commission will allow us the time to consider some of those what ifs and really have a remove the barriers and allow the private market to create the kind of housing that people of all ages are asking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person signed up to speak is Hanson Sale.
Hanson Sale, East Tennessee Realtor, 609 Weisgarber. I am also speaking in support of this resolution on behalf of our association. I've sort of wavered on what to say. We've talked a lot about how to address the housing crisis. We talk a lot about it. We don't do a lot about it. We've heard, I've given you plenty of stats that, rents are $450 more expensive than they were 2 years ago. Home prices are upwards of 40% higher than they were pre-pandemic. We say it over and over, but we don't do all that much. And this is a really easy, and I can't overstate enough, a very, very small change. RN2 represents only 20% of residentially zoned land in this city, so 80% of neighborhoods would not be affected were we to remove this requirement, and most are already built out and wouldn't be affected anyways. It's also important to know who lives in attached housing. I did some analysis of census data this morning, and a sizable majority of those living in attached housing are either young professionals, 25 to 35, or seniors, 65 plus. And the second most common form of housing for seniors in this city, of people living in Knoxville, is attached housing, duplexes. So duplexes solve two things. They create affordable both home ownership and rental opportunities in neighborhoods where someone might not be able to afford a home, but they can afford half of a duplex, the rent or the home ownership opportunity. But it's also a way for our seniors to age in place and stay in Knoxville. But there's also a moral component to this. There was a great article in The Atlantic that I will pull from, but we have drawn a border wall around our neighborhoods and said, if you don't live in a single family home, that you're not allowed. And so television screens can depict the immigrants being turned away at the border, but they don't capture the way that working class people are systematically removed from our neighborhoods, or never given an opportunity to move to a better neighborhood where maybe their kid might be able to go to a better public school. We never see that because there's an invisible border around our neighborhoods that, because in the most prosperous neighborhoods, we oftentimes prohibit or obstruct construction of the type of homes that less advantaged families can afford. I, like many of you, believe Knoxville should be a place where people of all backgrounds can seek and achieve a better life for themselves. But campaign slogans, worrying about the housing crisis, all or welcome yard signs aren't enough to achieve anything. It's policy. We need finally to put our money where our mouth is. We need to break down the border walls around our neighborhoods to support people. Housing is one of the most important crises facing our city today, maybe second only to substance abuse. And this is a really small step. And if we can't take this step, what step can we? To paraphrase from the article, the huge inequalities between our most affluent neighborhoods and their poorer counterparts didn't just happen. They are in large part a product of zoning laws that are hard to square with the ideals that we like to put in public statements and in social media. Lest we forget, doing the right thing isn't always easy, and in fact, it isn't even popular at many times. Some of the most remarkable things we've achieved as a city and as a country have been broadly unpopular when they were first implemented, and we turn back in retrospect and we say, dang, we did a really good job, but it was elected officials who didn't only listen to the vocal minority and decided to make a decision that is right for the people of Knoxville. And I think it's important to acknowledge that we actually do have an opportunity here, a unique opportunity. Our association did a scientific public opinion poll that we will be releasing soon, and 70% of city voters said that they favored changing zoning laws to allow the construction of more duplexes, triplexes, and townhomes. I sit through a lot of these meetings just like you all. That's not what we hear, but that's what the community needs. It's what's best for Knoxville, and I really hope you will support this really small step in what is likely to be a very long process. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person signed up to speak on this item is Mr. Don Lindsay. Mr. Lindsay, you'll have up to 5 minutes to address council, and if you would start by stating your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. My name is Don Lindsay, and my address is 5312 Trace Manor Lane in Knoxville, 37912. And I'm here today as a volunteer leader with AARP Tennessee, and I have brought a letter with your permission. This is from the state director of AARP. It was emailed to you earlier today. With your permission, I'll read this to explain what the position is of AARP. Would that be all right?
Yes.
Okay. Dear Knoxville City Council members, AARP Tennessee has a stalwart belief that all people deserve the ability to have housing that is accessible and affordable. It is in that spirit that we support the resolution sponsored by Councilwoman Seema Singh. Surveys by AARP show that most Americans, including older adults, prefer to live in walkable neighborhoods that offer a mix of housing and transportation options that are close to jobs, schools, shopping, entertainment, and green spaces. Missing middle housing can meet those needs. With a growing aging population, construction of a variety of housing options will become more important. Currently, we have thousands of older adults who are house rich but cash poor. Some would like to sell their home and buy something more affordable or accessible in their community, but in most cases, that type of housing does not exist. Older adults will also become more reliant on caregivers as they age. Unpaid family caregivers are the backbone of our long-term care system. Missing middle housing can help family members live with or near one another to support their loved one, while still having their own space or residence. The option will also help older adults have the care they need rather than being forced to spend down their assets to near poverty level to qualify for Medicaid. During the COVID crises, we talked a lot about the impact of social isolation and the physical and emotional toll it had on older adults. Missing middle housing fits within and helps to generate walkable, place-based neighborhoods with community amenities. These shared amenities serve as a shared space where neighbors can get out and about, interact, and gather. AARP has been working across the country with many local and state elected leaders to pursue much-needed changes to remove barriers that prevent the creation of missing middle housing. In recent years, cities like Memphis, Minneapolis, and the states of Nebraska, California, and Oregon have adopted regulations more favorable to missing middle housing. We believe that a neighborhood that includes missing middle housing is well-positioned to respond to the housing supply, affordability, smart land use, income equity, and empowerment. We look forward to being a resource to the sponsor and to the council as you move forward through this process. Thank you. It's signed Mia McNeil, State Director of AARP Tennessee.
Thank you,
Any
Mr.
questions?
Lindsay. If there are questions, council will ask you to come back up during their discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, Councilmember Ryder has her light on. I don't know if Councilmember Singh, did you want to speak to it first as the sponsor? Okay.
Thank you. First off, I want to say thank you to the administration. I know you guys are working on this piece also. And then I know that Vice Mayor Roberto is getting together a workshop on it. And I'm glad that we're all working on this because this isn't an issue, it's a crisis. The piece that I'm bringing forward tonight is very, very tiny. And I'm not asking us to make the decision on whether we should move the special permission. I'm just saying, can we as a council send this on to Planning Commission? One of my biggest regrets on council is we did recode when so many of us were very new. And as through these last 5 years, I'm seeing the unintended consequences. We all are. And this is trying to fix one piece of that.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryder, your light is off. Councilmember Thomas?
Yes.
And then
I plan to support this. What I appreciate the most about it is this is not a resolution to, at this time, eliminate the special use. It's a resolution to study it. And sometimes we need to do it that way, and I appreciate you doing that. We have a workshop. And I especially will keep, obviously, an open mind about this. So I will like to hear whatever planning staff comes back as far as a recommendation. There may be some other aspects to it that I'm not aware of yet, and I'll reserve my judgment about whether to approve the final recommendation of the planning staff, depending on what it was, to the proper time. Yes, I do plan to support this and look forward to the recommendation. I will make one comment, though, is almost everything that we hear about RECODE is negative, and RECODE has actually done some really good things. And it helped really stabilize the housing situation in a lot of my district that was just a mix of willy-nilly zoning and growth that had happened over the years. And RECODE actually did more than anything to actually stabilize that. So that doesn't mean that the negative things that are said about RECODE are not founded. It's not perfect, but I think we forget that there were some really, really positive things about RECODE. And I can be a witness to that as some of the changes that's happened actually in my district as far as zoning, the way the district has grown, how actually the density has increased with infill. So anyway, just kind of want to add that, a little bit of a perspective on that, but I appreciate Councilperson Singh bringing this, and I really appreciate the way that it was done as far as the steps that we're taking, as far as doing a resolution to study it, and it gives us time to digest everything and talk about it without coming up and having to vote on it every 2 weeks. So thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Singh brought up that we actually did have a workshop on missing middle. We're still tallying the results of what we're going to do for our poll for workshops this fall, but we hope to be able to announce those soon. And this was a topic, so hopefully we will see that. Deputy to the Mayor Gill, since we had that workshop on missing middle, and there is the potential for council to have another workshop in the fall on missing middle, what are you hoping to bring if we do have that workshop, a subsequent workshop on missing middle?
Well, Vice Mayor Roberto, I'll turn it over to Ms. Gill for more details if I don't have those answers at my fingertips. But I just want to say that Councilmember Singh's resolution is entirely consistent with our efforts to study and also bring to council some proposals on this. And if council wants to have a workshop on missing middle, as we have taken the Optico study and moved from the recommendations to how to implement those consistent with the urgency of this crisis, we'd be happy to do another workshop. But I just want to say that I share this community's sense that this is a crisis. Thank you, Councilmember Singh, for bringing this resolution to council for their consideration. And we're not waiting. We're moving forward on these issues right now and plan to bring items to planning and to council for review this calendar year to hopefully go into effect in January. So that's all in the works, but it does take some study, and I couldn't agree more with the comments of the speakers that you had before us in the letter from the AARP. Our zoning ordinance is a huge lever that we do have to address sustainability, address equity, and address smart growth for all the people who want to live in our great city. So I think deploying that lever in a effective way is what we are working on, and this resolution adds to that.
So if we were to have a workshop, that would be your anticipation then would be that we would be reviewing potential language for an ordinance change?
Yes.
Would that ordinance change be more of a targeted solution or more of a blanket solution like we're talking about in the resolution?
Well, that's what we're working on right now. And obviously, if you all pass this resolution, we'll continue to work with planning and hear what their recommendations are.
Okay. I'm very supportive of that. I'm glad we had the workshop on missing middle. I think it's an important piece that we need to do. I appreciate my colleague, Councilmember Singh, bringing this to our attention and also for the ability to study this, because I think that is important. I do feel like a more targeted approach would probably be a good idea. But the one thing I wanted us to think about as well is that right now we have a system in place that allows for transparency through a public process. And I'm always a big advocate for transparency in a public process. So as we're studying this, and this goes to planning and it's further discussed in future potential ordinance changes, I want us to keep in mind that transparency process and having a public process as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure who was next. Who's Ms. Ryder or Ms. Parker? Wait, I'm not. Ms. Parker, are you next? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to express my support of this study. I think these are conversations that we need to have. And when I first saw the proposal, I had to review the zoning code because I was surprised that I was, once I looked into it, I was surprised to see how RN2 is set up, I would have thought it would allow duplexes by right. So it does make sense, and hearing that we've had no request denied is encouraging, and I think just spending time to see what the impact and what some unintended consequences might be is a smart next step. I do think that the missing middle conversation needs to move forward and help also guide future zoning decisions that we might make, zoning changes that we might make, because it did, stand out to me in the workshop that the recommendation of the consultant is that we start in one area and spread out from there, and that did resonate with me. However, especially coming out of RECODE, I think very clear, intentional, transparent processes are very important, especially when making major changes to our zoning code. But as others have said, this is a process that will have multiple opportunities for public engagement. And as I said, I think it's a conversation that we need to have, and I think that it could be a good change for our zoning code. So I do support it.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryder?
Yeah, I actually would like to potentially propose, I would like to propose a friendly amendment if Councilwoman Singh would be willing to support that, which is to broaden the request a little bit beyond just the special use, because in the missing middle housing study, there's many other barriers that are listed for duplexes. And knowing that we've had 24 requests for duplexes approved with special use, my thoughts are that the special use is not the greatest barrier to them. So I would like to propose an amendment for the Planning Commission to include in their recommendation an analysis or comments on the dimensional standards like minimum lot size, lot coverage, and setbacks. Because the 10,000, so that's my amendment, friendly amendment.
It's very friendly. I like it.
Well, someone has to second it for it to actually be an amendment.
Okay.
That was a motion I made.
Second.
Motion's been made to amend, has been seconded.
The amendment is to ask the Knox County Planning Commission to include in their recommendation a review of dimensional standards, including minimum lot size, lot coverage, and setbacks.
Okay. Ms. Gill, I was wondering if you could just speak to that, since I know you're leading an effort to study these issues already. Go ahead.
Yep. Thank you, Council. Deputy to the Mayor, Aaron Gill. And I want to recognize that we have several of this team in the audience, but this is a cross-departmental team, because I think, to your point, Councilwoman Ryder, we recognize that the complexity in actually unlocking the missing middle housing goes far beyond just what is allowed by special use or as a permitted use. So we are in the process of fully vetting those proposed code changes to thoroughly address those issues, and recognizing that the potential for one change to not be mirrored by a change elsewhere in the code leaves an opportunity for someone to be kind of stuck, where we thought we were doing something and then didn't actually do it because there's some other adjustment that needed to be made. So we are in the process of that methodical approach, and with specific regard to some of those more comprehensive considerations, that is currently part of that analysis. And to your point, it is very important. Setbacks, building height, design principles, also in that mix. So we would not at all oppose that amendment, and we would consider it to support this analysis that is underway.
Councilmember Ryder on the amendment?
I just made an amendment, and I just wanted to make another comment. In full disclosure, I own a duplex on a 50 by 150 foot lot in an RN2 zone. So I just wanted to make that clear. Some of you may know my tenants. And I I've owned it before. Or for a while, and the problems in the past have been more management and upkeep of it. There's been no other issues with it, so I just want to throw that out there. So I think that's just fair for me to disclose that.
Okay, noted. Councilmember Singh.
Speaking to the amendment, I like that very much. And the targeted approach that the administration is working on with Opticos, they had talked about several different strategies at the same time. And the targeted approach was one of them. My concern, we need all hands on deck right now. The targeted approach, I'd like to ask Hanson Sales if he would speak to this, about the equity aspect of that.
Mr. Sale.
Hanson Sale again, 609 Weisgarber. I'll just preface with, obviously we don't have an official position because there isn't an official proposal, but we're very supportive of and actively working with the city on the missing middle housing strategy, and we'll certainly support a targeted approach, I presume in part because anything is better than nothing. But to the equity point, I think it's really important that this country has a long history of applying different standards to different communities, and the beauty of removing something at a zoning district level is that we're not saying, well, only the people who won't push back, which typically are areas with less social mobility, lower income, the people who don't have time to come up to meetings. We're applying the same standard to the communities that also are affluent and who are very well organized. So I think there's a beauty in addressing something at a zoning district level, and that it applies uniformly to people across the city, and moves away from the scenarios that our country, as many of you know, has a long history of applying different standards to different areas, and there are considerable negative consequences of doing so. And that has often reinforced a lot of economic and unfortunately racial segregation in many of our communities across the country. We're not immune, but that's what I would add to that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Testerman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just say I reiterate a lot of what's already been said. We have repeatedly talked about and listened to the urgent and critical need of housing in the city. And I would just say, at what point do we become problem solvers and not roadblockers? Restrictive zoning, especially single-family zoning, creates a high hurdle for affordable housing. And we are over-regulating these opportunities, caving to the NIMBYism and resigning to settle for the status quo, and which continues to confine ourselves to pre-existing demographic patterns that keep promoting disparities. So, to me, duplexes are simply single-family homes with two front doors. But not supporting this, we are saying that our young professionals, our nurses, our first responders, our seniors, our teachers, aren't good enough to be our neighbors. And, many of those young professionals, are future homeowners if they choose to rent within those neighborhoods. And we also need to allow the private sector to help us remedy this problem. They're committed and invested. There are many who are committed and invested to addressing the affordable housing crisis. And, RECODE, as we've always said, is a living document. And this makes a great deal of sense to modify and be able to remove barriers to progress. So, and again, I go back to, it's just impacting 20% of the residential property throughout the city. So I actually would like to see this expanded to triplexes and townhomes and other affordable housing options. But I certainly support this, and I think it's a great first step.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
I just have one comment to add to the point Vice Mayor Roberto made about public input, that it be more than just the Planning Commission meetings and our council meetings, that it doesn't have to be a full recode, but I do think making people understand this, or helping people understand this, takes many rounds of listening and hearing, and that I think the more we can host those types of educational forums outside of out of these walls and in neighborhoods, I think will produce a better outcome.
Thank you. Councilmember Thomas.
Totally underline that, and that's the most important thing, actually. And I take a special interest in this missing middle approach because it's my district that's primarily targeted. So I know my neighbors really well. There's generally an improvement in the district that has been brought about just by recode. And there's infill that's been appreciated by the neighbors. It's in harmony. So I'm going to look at this very closely because it appears what has been taking place in certain areas that are targeted by the missing middle is actually has a system right now that is working. I can't say it won't be improved, but we definitely need to hear from the neighbors and those affected. So I look forward to the discussion. I welcome an approach that studies something to increase the housing stock without these huge multi-unit apartment buildings that have their place, absolutely have their place. But as far as livability and what the person from AARP was talking about, you know, I welcome an approach that increases the housing stock in a way that's more pedestrian friendly and is a better quality of life than some of the units that we've been building in the past. So anyway, I welcome this discussion. I'll be paying a lot of attention to it, and let's move forward on it, see what happens.
Thank you. Speaking still to the amendment, Councilmember McKenzie.
Thank you, Mayor, and I just want to commend Councilwoman Singh for bringing this forward and for your administration for continuing to have a focus on this. When we talk about affordable housing, it still begs the question, what's affordable and to whom it's affordable? So I saw Mr. Bentley here, and I don't know if, hate to put you on the spot, but if you even can tell us an estimate of what a Section 8 rent would be for, and I think duplexes are typically either 1 to 2 bedrooms.
Yeah.
And I would say maybe 2 bedrooms for a family.
Yeah, so it would vary a little bit based on, so we tie a lot of our rents to small area fair market rents that are published by HUD on an annual basis, knowing we're trying to increase landlord participation in our programs, and in certain parts of town, they are able on the private market to get a different rent than they would be in other parts of town. So it varies a little bit, but I would say a good estimate community-wide would be, and this is the rent we charge both as a subsidy and to the individual. So the individual in almost no cases would actually pay this, but you know, about, I would say 800 is probably a good estimate for a 2-bedroom unit on a voucher. That fluctuates a little bit though based on the geography.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bentley, Director of KCDC. Ms. Parker.
Thank you. Just quickly, I wanted to echo the points raised by Councilmember McKenzie. I'm a supporter of missing middle, but I don't feel that it is our, you know, the solution to our crisis. We need more tools. I think this is one of the tools, but not necessarily the solution. And part of that is early in the pandemic, during my research on what other cities were doing to address affordable housing, a lot of cities were looking at tiny homes and building tiny homes and putting them on the market and expecting them to sell, you know, for maybe $125,000. But they were, you know, these new developments, a smart use of space. They work for a lot of different demographics. People were making these, you know, small pocket neighborhoods with the tiny homes, so you had a little community and they became popular. And I spoke with leaders in a couple of cities where they saw bidding wars on tiny homes that they had approved to provide affordable housing for their communities. And so that's one reason why I keep, pushing the fact that we do need, more different types of housing. We need more options for our residents. But when it comes to the affordability, we're just going to have to be very intentional about it because, we can't predict the market is one thing, and a lot of these developments have become very popular as of late. So I'm in support of it, but we got to keep doing more to increase our affordable housing stock.
Thank you, Councilmember Parker. Just a reminder, we're discussing the amendment, and if you guys are ready to vote on the amendment, let me know. Councilmember Fugit.
Mayor, I'm going to call the question on the amendment and the motion. I move to call the question on both.
Well,
You can do both.
You can do both, okay. Does there have to be a second to the call for the question? Is there a second to the call for the question? Okay. The question's been called on the amendment and the motion. Let's vote on the amendment first. Does everyone understand the amendment? Oh, vote on the call for the question. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes, so the question's been called, and now we'll vote on the amendment. All those does everyone understand the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The amendment carries. Now we're back to the motion as amended. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on.
11C is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute any and all documents necessary to renew a policy with Liberty Mutual for property, flood, earthquake, and boiler and machinery insurance coverage for the city of Knoxville for an approximate annual premium of $536,129, leaving one remaining renewal option on the policy for one additional one-year term.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11D is a resolution authorizing the mayor to amend the contract with Johnson, Miriam, and Thompson for the Sevier Avenue Streetscapes Improvements Project, increasing the contract amount by $60,045 for a new contract total of $506,475 and extending the date of completion to December 31, 2024.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Deputy Brace, I believe this is an effort to save the taxpayer some dollars by rebidding a contract. Or Mr. Claybo, if you want to
I'm gonna kick it over to
Can
Mr.
you just
Claybo.
explain while we're jumping over this hurdle?
Sure, Tom Claybo, Engineering Director. So in mid-June, let me go back. The Sevier Avenue Streetscapes project is divided into two contracts.
Right.
One of those being a utility relocation contract, so moving aerial utilities underground. And then the second is a roadway contract that's got federal funds in it. So we bid the utility contract mid-June. It came in well over our budget, had one bidder. So we're going to repackage the construction documents, split that up into actually three contracts now. So it'll be a roadway and two separate utility contracts, trying to better isolate the type of work to the contractors, try to get more interest in that. So
But just for the public's benefit, this actually is an increase, but in the grand scheme of the project and this bidding process, it'll actually save us money.
that's exactly
All right,
right. Yes.
okay. And we still plan to break ground by the end of the year?
We hope to get all three contracts bid this fall with construction in the winter.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11E is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Canon and Canon Incorporated to provide third-party engineering plans review services on an as-needed basis for an amount not to exceed $125,000 for 1 year with 2 optional 1-year renewal terms.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. There's one person signed up to speak to this. He's decided not to speak to this. Any further questions or comments from council? Seeing none. Oh, Vice Mayor Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. So everyone knows in the public, what we're doing here is we've had some difficulty with having permits being issued on time. And one of the recommendations from the Matrix study was, maybe to look at having an outside firm do this. So I'm very supportive of this. I think everyone else is too, but I just didn't want to pass it without anyone saying what we were doing here. One of the ways that we need to make sure we're dealing with the housing crisis is make sure we're getting permits out timely. And so I want to commend staff and the administration for 25 days into a new budget, getting something together so that we can start to address this. I also want to just make sure that we continue to look at this in case we do need to hire more staff, because that was one of the other recommendations. But I appreciate the promptness of getting this to us, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor. I just want to reiterate, as I've been keeping you apprised, we do have an unprecedented level of investment in our city, and we do have an unprecedented housing crisis. And so this goes to address that backlog to make sure that our permits and plans are reviewed promptly. And I appreciate council support. We have also hired or in the process of hiring additional staff. And I remain committed to bringing, if the need for more permanent staff becomes clear, even after addressing the backlog, we'll bring a budget amendment to you all to consider for hiring more staff. So we're moving forward on all fronts, and I appreciate your support for hiring this outside consultant to address the most acute needs right now. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11F is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with APAC Atlantic Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $331,923.75 for the Third Creek Greenway Resurfacing Phase 1 project.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Council members, I just wanted to say that we've been very committed to adding Greenway connections. But the Greenways Commission has, continued to support, and I agree with them, the need to maintain the ones we already have. So this is exactly what this does, is repaving the Third Creek Greenway surface. It's one of our most heavily used greenways for recreation and transportation, and so appreciate your support. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11G is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a railroad agreement with the Knoxville and Holson River Railroad Company for a public-grade railroad crossing and for the city of Knoxville to pay for construction inspection services in an amount not to exceed $108,000 as part of the Sevier Avenue Streetscapes project.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11H is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with S&ME Incorporated to provide professional engineering design services for the First Creek Best Management Practices Demonstration Park project for an amount not to exceed $168,000, funded with the American Rescue Plan Act grant.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11I is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a quitclaim deed to 2700 Properties, LLC, for one parcel of property located at 2901 Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, parcel ID number 082FN024, within the limits of the city of Knoxville pursuant to the Homemakers Program for a contract sales price of $45,000.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11J is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a quitclaim deed to 2700 Properties, LLC, for one parcel of property located at 2735 Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, parcel ID number 082KD016, within the limits of the City of Knoxville pursuant to the Homemakers Program for a contract sales price of $31,500.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11K is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Volunteer Ministry Center to provide an amount not to exceed $54,500 to support the provision of case management services at Minvilla Manor and social services at its Resource Center and Bush Family Refuge.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Council members, I just wanted to flag for your attention the next three items all demonstrate this city's and your commitment to permanent supportive housing. Item M is, Liberty Place, and that's a capital investment. But after these facilities are built, they need ongoing financial support, and items K and L demonstrate our support to the operating services that these facilities require. So I appreciate your ongoing support of permanent supportive housing. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11L is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Southeastern Housing Foundation II, Incorporated, to provide an amount not to exceed $75,000 to support case management and property management services at Flanagan Landing.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Council, just as a tangent, since this is about Flanagan Landing, you may have heard there was a small fire there last night or the night before. Anyhow, our firefighters put the fire out very promptly. The residents had to vacate the property for one night, and now they're all back in their homes except for one resident who is being taken care of and hopefully can return to his or her home shortly. But just wanted to share that with you in case you were worried. Any questions or discussion on item L? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11M is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute any and all documents necessary to award an amount not to exceed $500,000 from the Affordable Rental Development Fund to Liberty Place Knoxville LP for the development of 32 affordable permanent supportive rental housing units to be located at 3627 Division Street.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Councilmember Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have questions about the cost of this. It seems like by unit, it's almost double what we paid, what the cost was for Callahan Flats. Mr. Bentley, if you would not mind speaking on that.
Yes, I'm excited to be able to answer this question. It is a very serious question. There's two ways, obviously, that you all are looking at this. You're looking at total cost, and we all have concerns. KCDC, first and foremost, is the builder of affordable housing to keep costs low. On this project, the main thing, so this was bid out as a construction manager type project. We had interest from 4 local contractors that do this type of work. The pricing kind of came back as what it is, and at that point there was some value engineering that could occur on a normal project, but we did not want to undertake that. There's a couple of quantitative and qualitative considerations that really led to the costs being what they are. Market conditions in terms of construction costs. There's greater interest carrying costs relative to construction period right now because interest rates have gone up. So there was a time 3 or 4 years ago when we would have paid no carrying costs on construction interest. We could have gotten a 0% interest loan. Right now in this project, that number is $400,000. So that's just one data point that immediately drives that cost up. Site work, this is a free site. Knox County gave it to us. We're thrilled about it, but there was significant grading that went into that number that would not be present at all sites. Outside of those quantitative things, there were some qualitative choices we made about the project. We felt like it was very important to make it a great place for veterans to live. So in this case, from an energy efficiency standpoint, there are solar panels involved with this project. We haven't done that anywhere else. We think it's important. It's fully furnished. There are, recognizing that folks that have that may be coming from an experience where they don't have the possessions that some of us enjoy in life. We need to make sure that that's present when they step in the door. So that was a pretty significant line item. Typically on a 32-unit development, 4 stories, we would not be putting in an elevator, but accessibility for all of these units is critical. So that elevator on a small project drove up the cost a little bit. And then there's additional in any of these, Callahan Flats, so we're not exactly, they would have had these costs as well, but Manvilla and this one, we're doing additional community space and amenities that would not be there maybe on a traditional affordable housing development. So there's several factors that go into that, and we, above all, want to see those costs down, but those are some of them, and I'm happy to unpack it further, but I can't imagine you would want me to.
10 more minutes of this, that'd be great.
Right.
No, I know that you're a good steward of monies. I just had questions about that. I'm excited about the solar panels.
The other piece, real quick, the $500,000, I think it is important not just to look at the total project cost, but on a per door basis, we're at about $15,000 per unit from the city's contribution on this project. And I think as stewards of the affordable rental development funds, it's really important to consider what you're getting per unit for your contribution. And so the total project cost is too high. We want to see it come down. The city's contribution is actually relatively low compared to most projects that you approve.
Thank you, Mr. Bentley. Councilmember Parker, and then Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you. I brought this up before on the Callahan Flats project, but for me, when it comes to the permanent supportive housing, I want to encourage us to make the investment to make sure we get the best end product that we can, and really continue to embrace that trauma-informed design. I heard good things from the increased costs, like the solar panels. I'm still not hearing about the trauma-informed design. And so, I just wanted to encourage, I guess, my colleagues and others to encourage that we invest in these types of properties and not pinch pennies, but make sure that we are creating spaces of healing, spaces where folks are able to regain some stabilization, move on potentially to other permanent housing, and not cut pennies on these. So just wanted to lift that up.
Thank you. Councilmember Thomas.
Well said, Councilperson Parker. I also want to give you kudos for the solar panels, and thanks for finding room in your budgeted money to be able to include those. And of course, the payback further for the residents will be it's going to lower their KUB bills. So we're talking affordability with the solar panels. So good going.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on item M? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11N is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Stubblefield Construction LLC to replace the existing gating system at the Knoxville Area Transit Operations and Maintenance Facility and to provide maintenance for 2 years for a total contract price not to exceed $488,000.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11O is a resolution granting authority to the Knox County Planning Commission to delegate to staff final plat approval for subdivisions up to 25 units.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Council members, there's 2 people signed up to speak in favor of this. First is Mr. Bentley Marlowe. Mr. Marlowe.
Hi there, Bentley Marlowe, 322 Douglas, 37921. We need to approve this so we can get back to the business of administratively approving plats, because that is often a huge hurdle in doing infill redevelopment in the Knoxville. We still have to get rid of ward lot lines. Maybe that's calming down some, we hope, but that's been the biggest experience I've had. And then sometimes I have these weird little lots that there's a private alley or something next to it that I end up owning, and then I have to combine it and I have to replat it. And if we have to go to a meeting for each one of these, we are just adding more and more days of delay before we can break ground. And like we had earlier, Peter's office is drowning with permits. Perhaps maybe we need to look at that policy. I keep thinking that we could shrink that, the drawing requirements down for single-family homes, but all of this together means that we're delaying getting started building houses. And we're in a housing crisis, and we need to find every possible way to streamline this process, and it starts right here with correcting this oversight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person signed up to speak is Mr. Ryan Lynch. Mr. Lynch, if you could start by stating your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Ryan Lynch, 4199 Barber Drive, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37918. I'm a registered land surveyor, and I'm here to be of assistance in any sort of questions. We appreciate all your time. Appreciate Director Brooks in putting this on the agenda as well. So if you need anything as far as questions or concerns, but we do ask that you vote yes to 11-0.
Thank you. That concludes the people signed up to speak to this. Vice Mayor Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for clarity, this is coming to us because there was a state law change, and we're actually codifying what we're actually already doing. Is that correct?
That's correct. Ms. Brooks, that's my understanding? Yep.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Ryder?
Yeah. Ms. Brooks, I have two questions. Number one, I'll ask number one secondly. I'll start with my number one will be, if I have two lots and I move lot lines and change things and that goes through a replat process, does that apply to this as well?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, that would be terrible if we had to vote on every single one of us changing our lot lines, because I personally have changed my lot line and replatted my property that I live on 2 times since I moved here. So y'all would hate it if we had to vote on that at every council meeting. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to clarify, it wouldn't come to council. It would come to planning commission.
Okay.
The full planning commission.
So you
body.
guys would have to vote on it.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
But the planning commission would.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Still, that'd be quite silly.
Well, in that.
Okay. And second part of the question is, I know I asked you who sponsored it at the state level, and we talked about it a little bit, so you don't have to necessarily go down that path, but do we have any real understanding as to why? Like, what was the madness behind the method, or,
I cannot speak to that.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Very good answer. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Are y'all all
A lot
surveyors?
of relieved people.
11P is a resolution authorizing the mayor to file an application for, and if awarded, accept a grant from the State of Tennessee Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities to provide funding for the creation of an inclusive play structure for children and adults who have intellectual developmental disabilities in an amount not to exceed $500,000.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11Q is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Fincham Sports Floors LLC to provide gym dance floor maintenance services in an amount not to exceed $35,000.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11R is a resolution expressing appreciation to National Amateur Baseball Foundation for the donation of $237,000 toward ball field improvements and installation at Christenberry Ball Fields, and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents necessary to accept said donation, as well as accept a construction agreement with NABF and their contractors.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Council members, there are 3 people here signed up to speak in favor of this, and the first is Buzz McNish. He is the Falcons commissioner and Fulton High School baseball coach. And Mr. McNish, you'll have up to 5 minutes to address council.
I'll be very quick. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. And I want to thank a couple of people that are back here. Jake Hicks is one of he grew up playing in the Falcons youth organization and plays baseball at Fulton High School, and his mom, Holly, is a big supporter of our organization. Nathan Myers is back here. He coaches in our organization and supports our organization as well. So I want to recognize them and Russell Mays, who's a teacher at Fulton High School. Thank them for being here and their work and support in helping us get this done. We've worked really hard with the National Amateur Baseball Federation to get to this point, and with the city, and it's going to be a game changer for our youth. It's going to provide improved facilities, level the playing field for our youth with what youth have in other areas. It's also going to give our youth opportunity that they may have never had before in baseball and softball. Not only does it benefit the Knoxville Falcons youth organization, but it also benefits Fulton High School baseball and softball programs because they both play at Christenberry Park. And I also wanted to come up and thank all of you for your support, your time reading through that, the paperwork for this, and your support of the Falcons youth organization, Christenberry Park, and Fulton High School. I know many of you know Larry Cox. I know that he would be proud of this opportunity that we have here tonight, and very thankful for your support as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person signed up to speak to this is Russell Mays. Mr. Mays.
Good evening. My name is Russell Mays, 8365 Bluestone Lane. I'm the AV production teacher at Fulton High School, as well as station manager of WKCS Falcon Radio, and also a Fulton football and baseball coach. I'm here today in support of the National Amateur Baseball Federation's donation to renovate Christenberry Park. The NABF donation will be a home run for Christenberry Park, Fulton High School, and the surrounding community. The upgrades to the park will give the Fulton baseball team a facility on par with others in our area. This will no doubt lead to an increase in interest and participation in baseball at Fulton High School and for the Knoxville Falcons youth organization. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to change the direction of baseball in the Fulton High School community. By supporting the NABF's investment in Christenberry Park, you will give the young people in our community an opportunity to have pride in a great facility. It'll also lead to an increase in participation in baseball for Fulton and the Knoxville Falcons, and also raise the perception of baseball in our community. This will be a major step for Knoxville as a baseball town. Thank you for your time and support.
Thank you. The last person signed up to speak on this is Nathan Myers. Mr. Myers. If you can start by stating your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Nathan Myers. I live at 919 Ledgerwood Avenue. Some of you, I shouldn't say most of you, some of you know me and know how much I love my community and advocate for it. My wife and I have 3 sons. Our oldest is a junior at Fulton High School, and we have 2 sons right behind him who play baseball as well. We spend a lot of our free time at Christenberry Ballpark watching, coaching, or playing catch in the evening. In 2015, New York Times bestselling author Robert Putnam authored a book called Our Kids, and it addressed the growing inequality gaps among youth in America. And one of the solutions he gave to close those gaps was investment and access to youth and high school sports. We all know that there are inequality gaps within our inner city area and in our community, and this donation will go a long way in closing those gaps and giving us in the heart of our community in Oakwood Lincoln Park a facility that will be the talk of the town and will help our kids have more access and opportunity to play sports. Thank you.
Thank you. Council members, that concludes people signed up to speak on this. Councilmember Thomas.
Yes, very well said. All my neighbors who spoke, and the baseball field has already had an upgrade somewhat to the efforts of Mr. Myers, who's also president of the North Knoxville Business and Professional Association. So he really does contribute a lot to the community, and we look forward to really improving the baseball experience for people in that neighborhood, and it's due to your work, all of your work. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, Councilmember Thomas. Council members, I just want to add a huge note of gratitude to the coaches and teachers and to the Jake Hicks and Jake Hicks's mom who are here this evening. This is about an improvement to a baseball field, but it doesn't just benefit the people who are playing baseball, because there's a lot of people who are out there watching the games, supporting the kids, and I do think while very few people will go on to a professional life in baseball, it's about investing and enriching kids and holding them up, lifting them up in many, many ways, teaching them leadership and teamwork, and just showing that this community cares about them. And I know the people who spoke to us this evening do that every day, and this agenda item, this investment is just another way to show that support. So thank you for working on this, and I think it's going to be a great addition to the North Knoxville community. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11S is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute any and all documents necessary to apply for and accept a grant award from the State of Tennessee Department of Finance in an amount not to exceed, in an amount up to $200,000 with no required matching funds to be used for law enforcement recruitment and retention efforts.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11T is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute any and all documents necessary to apply jointly with Knox County for the 2023 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Award of $154,782 from the U.S. Department of Justice to enhance law enforcement functions through the purchase of equipment, supplies, and technology upgrades, as well as to provide enhanced law enforcement training for the Knoxville Police Department, and if such application is approved, authorizing the mayor to accept such a grant award.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mayor. Would it be, could we get more information on the technology upgrades that are a part of the application, and also the nature of the joint application with the county?
Chief Noel.
Yes, ma'am. Paul Noel, Police Chief. We talked about this last year. This is the annual grant that we do. We apply jointly with the county, I believe, because of the Homeland Security District. If fully awarded, the formula would be about approximately about $109,000 for the city and about $45,000 for the county. But because we have a joint Homeland Security agreement with the county, that's how this grant would have to apply together. We cannot apply separately.
And the technology, could you talk more about the technology?
Yeah, so this is the 2023 grant. Right now, we're actually on JAG 2020, so we're about 2 to 3 years behind. The DOJ is about 2 to 3 years behind of awarding this. Right now, we're still in the process of putting together our budget for this. Previously, what we've used for this right now in 2020, we bought the 3D crime scene mapping software, computer equipment, a parking garage gate, gas mask. In 2019, we used this for the Sun Spear repair at the Safety City Complex, the little mini Sun Spear complex, X-ray machine for the building, some non-flox cameras, some printers, and a bunch of crime scene supplies and software for our field training officer position. Right now, what we would be looking at would be a wide variety of technological equipment, probably including some flock cameras. But again, if we receive this grant, we would not be, at the earliest, we would not be eligible to spend funding to 2025, 2026. So as we do every year, we would likely to have to do a grant adjustment as our priorities a couple years from now would change.
Perfect, thank you. And just so you know, I ask these questions every time this grant comes up, every time any similar grant comes up that mentions technology, because we are aware that there have at least been discussions of KPD acquiring surveillance technology, but we haven't gotten updates on what technology has been acquired, when we have gotten, grant proposals that have come before us. And so I ask these questions each time it comes up to try to get these updates on how these funds are being spent. So I appreciate.
Yes, ma'am.
the
That's why I
updates.
wanted to give you an update on what we spent on the 2020, which is actually the one we're in right now. So, 2020 seems like a while back, but we're spending that money right now in this fiscal year.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11U is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute any and all documents necessary to apply for and accept a grant award from the State of Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security in an amount not to exceed $750,000 for the School Resource Officer Program with no required local match to be used for expenses such as training, equipment, salary, and benefits for school resource officers at Knox County Schools.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mayor. For this grant program, is this a one-time funding allocation for the 10 positions?
My understanding is that it's ongoing. Chief Noel, is that correct?
That's our understanding as well. This is going to be ongoing. But again, that obviously could change based upon the legislation.
Right. And so if it seems, quite likely, since it's state funding and it's quite likely that Knoxville will get the funding. Would the money that we currently have budgeted for these positions then be reallocated to another use?
I think we'll have to see if we get the grant and also, what the budget looks like at that time, But, that's a possibility.
That was one thing that stood out to me is it's the one time I applaud the state's funding. If you want to replace city funds so that we can use it on something else, then yay, that's wonderful. But I do think it's important that we acknowledge this new funding and acknowledge the urgent needs that we have in other departments and consider other uses for the $750,000 if the state is going to cover it.
Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11V is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with H. Bruce Guyton in an amount not to exceed $12,500 per month to provide professional standards services for the City of Knoxville Police Department.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Councilmember Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. So I've spoken with the chief about this some. I think there are a lot of people wondering why Brooklyn was, why her stay was so temporary. And the only answer that people have been getting is that that's what we expected right from the beginning. I want to respect if she has some personal reasons, but I would also like to address a lot of people's questions about what happened.
Thank you, Councilmember Singh. I just want to say that Chief Belk did amazing work in her short tenure with the city. We did think it would be short, but things didn't think it would necessarily be this short. So we appreciate all that she did to help us, redevelop and get started on the Office of Professional Standards and start examining policies. And I have to say that I think it's proven to be quite invaluable to have someone with a law degree inside working and helping the police department. So we are, she did a great job, and as with many people with talents, different opportunities arise, and she's moving on to other opportunities. Chief Noel, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Absolutely. So, she was exceptionally qualified. That's obvious. And this is something that we're very committed to. This is, obviously a priority of the mayor and myself to have a person in an attorney in the position of Office of Professional Standards. And, while Chief Belk was only with us for a limited amount of time, we hope to have her a lot longer than this. I've said that publicly on media outlets, a lot. But we also knew that that she was not going to be with us forever. She was going to come in and really help stand this up and then move on. So we absolutely have big shoes to fill. You know, she created the first ever Office of Professional Standards, which is a big accomplishment to stand something up that didn't exist. She started the process of building policies and systems which did not exist before. And while that's not completed yet, her successor, that we hope to find a permanent person to fill that job, is going to finish that. She did the heavy lifting of standing that up and creating the dialogue around not only the policies but the systems that didn't exist. And you know, one thing I haven't spoken, you know, a lot about is she dramatically increased efficiency of our internal investigations. In many cases, they take months, in some cases even like a year to complete. In most cases now, we get these investigations done in about 30 days and no longer than 60 days to have these internal investigations done, which creates a due process, not only for our officers, but for people who file complaints as well, knowing that they're going to be resolved in a expediently, as quickly as possible. And you know, she's no longer a member of our team, but I think I could speak for every member of KPD that we're better off having had her on that team, even in a short amount of time that we did.
So what I'm hearing is that she did some great work in setting everything up. Different opportunities come along, people come, people go, no drama.
I mean, you know, we hire exceptional people, and you know, she's, you know, obviously very qualified, highly sought after, and you know, my job right now is to go out and find the best person to permanently fill this job, and we're advertising all across the country right now. We're getting resumes in right now, and the reason that we're trying to bring in Judge Guyton temporarily is to keep that work going and show our commitment to this, because we're absolutely committed to this, and we don't want to lose any ground. And Judge Guyton is not going to be the permanent individual in this job. We're trying to find that individual now, and that's something that I'm focused on now, and keeping our momentum going as well.
Thank you.
I'll just add that, it's been really helpful to have Chief Belk's contributions. We don't want to lose any momentum, and I appreciate all that she did in her short tenure and respect her decision to move on to the next phase of her career. Any other questions, Councilmember Parker?
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate the conversation. But I do have some concerns, and I did have a chance to speak with the chief about this, and they're somewhat twofold. I believe changes, reforms are needed in terms of internal affairs. I've had complaints brought to me by officers and concerns raised about a lack of trust in that process, in the internal affairs process. And so I agree that that needs to be a priority when we talk about reforms needed within KPD. However, we also have to maintain a commitment to addressing issues of racism and sexism within KPD. And this departure is one that does concern me based on not exact information that we've been shared, but the murmurs that are coming out about what happened. And so one thing that I wanted to lift up is it's important that this reform of internal affairs moves forward, but it's also important that we remain committed to that process. And part of remaining committed to that process means that when we have instances like the need to now replace Belk, that we're able to review what happened and make sure that we are doing what we need to do as a city to support our minority officers who have told us in the past that they have not felt supported within the department previously. Are we giving support to Black staff, to women, so that they aren't getting pushed out of organizations or pushed out of spaces within the city? And if we are quickly to move on and we don't review those moments, then we're not going to be able to address them. And these are tough issues. This is what I've dedicated my career to. These are the tough conversations that I have all the time. And I will tell you, they're uncomfortable and people do not like to have them about, dealing with racism and sexism within the work environment. And so I'm not opposed to this appointment. I wish it did not come before us. Because in my opinion, I cannot imagine really a independent temporary contractor serving in the role that we're asking the judge to serve. Because they're doing the work that a permanent staff person would do. They have to have that authority for this to work. And so I have to trust in this moment that you all believe this person, as an independent temporary contractor, will have the authority to be effective in this role on a short-term basis. So I'll support it tonight, but I encourage us to not lose sight of the work that needs to be done, the difficult conversations that need to be had, the transparency that's needed for our community. It really does so much more good than it does bad to just have some transparency and some honest conversations about what we're experiencing in our city. So that's what I encourage.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the focus on filling the position quickly and keeping this work going. I think this is a very critical role, and I agree with what I was hearing about. We don't want to, slow down the progress that's being made, so I think this is very important. So I definitely plan on supporting it. Chief, or if there's somebody else who can talk to us about it, the allocation is quite a large one that we're seeing here. Now, I imagine because you're looking for somebody who's got that's a lawyer, and this is a temporary role, that may be leading to what the monetary amount is here. But just wanted to take a couple minutes to maybe let you talk to us about, the justification for the expense here. I think it's a very critical role, but it is a large amount.
Absolutely, Vice Mayor. So obviously, Judge Guyton is immensely qualified. He has decades of legal experience here in Knoxville, serving as a federal judge, and also I think the uniqueness of the fact that he is not interested in serving in this position on a permanent basis. He's only coming in as a stopgap. This position could only last several months, and based on his qualifications and the fact that this is only a temporary contract, I absolutely believe that the cost of this contract is absolutely worth it. And if you want to get quality individuals, I think we have to compensate them fairly.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Vice Mayor Roberto, your light is still on? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
12A is an ordinance approving the request of Victor Jernigan for an amendment to the Central City Sector Plan from medium-density residential office to mixed-use special district Sutherland North Side for property located at 522 and 524 Victory Street, 6th District.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
12B is an ordinance approving the request of Victor Jernigan for a one-year plan amendment from medium-density residential office to mixed-use special district Sutherland North Side for property located at 522 and 524 Victory Street, 6th District.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
12C is an ordinance to change the base zoning classification for property located at 522 and 524 Victory Street from RN4 District to CG2 District. Victor Jernigan, applicant, 6th District.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, council, we have 3 people signed up for public forum. First is Mr. Zieda. You could come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
My name is John Zieda, and I'm here to and I live at 48 Encara Court, Knoxville, Tennessee, and I'm here to discuss 2 stores that were stolen by the city of Knoxville, and it's all provable, especially one of them. They got a couple of things in common. Both of them were Palestinian-owned immigrants that called Knoxville home. The city stole them, the city burned them, and the city led us to believe that a black man did it. I can't prove my father's store that it was burned by the city, but I can prove that the city stole it. And maybe if we see the arson pictures, we'll see that the city burned it also. You're not going to be able to see the store. Picture's too small. The store was a viable business on Martin Luther King. Somewhere around June of 2012, the city shut down Mr. Ayish. The city shut him down under nuisance. Whatever the reason was, we're not going to go into that. Whatever the reason was, what we're going to go into is how did the city go inside that store and burn it. The city burned it, and it happened December 29th, 2012. This year, I spoke to Fire Captain Parton, and I'm sure he dislikes being put in this situation. He stated that it was an experiment. We cannot have an experiment when India McDowell, on the police report, was stated that he burned the store. Is it experiment with the fire department or Mr. Gorley? We cannot have both as arsonists. It's one or the other. It's one or the other. Both these owners, my father, around 1980, we were all younger, some of us not even born. I asked my father, did he like Knoxville while he was inside Gaz Walker? He spent his life there. He was standing like this, watching the customers coming and going. At that moment where he had a chance not to be actively busy, he stated yes, he liked Knoxville. And I remember when Gaz Walker put that sign for the building for sale. It was right in front of my father's car. So when he came to work, he seen that sign. And one day, he decided to buy that store. Who would have thought that this city would go inside these businesses and burn them? I hate to put Stan, I forgot your last name, into this situation. But we're here, and I want to ask you, who burned the store? That's exactly how I thought I was going to go get the answer. That's exactly the answer I thought. We've got our answer. The city burned it. The city owes my father a check for that store, the store that you people stole. You stole Gaz Walkers from my family. My father worked there 20 years. 20 years my father worked there, day in, day out. And Mr. Ayish, after the fire was done, the fire department, the arson investigators, mind you, the arson investigators, Darrell Whitaker, he picks up the phone to Mr. Ayish, probably. Now, that part I don't know, but I can imagine. He says, Mr. Ayish, we had a homeless black man inside your store, and he burned it. And nobody burned it but the city. I want to check for my father's store, and I realize I am 60. We can want in one hand and get in another. But nobody in his right, it's bad enough what the Palestinian people put up with in Israel. We put up with a lot of stuff over there. My father said around 1980, he immigrated here in 1953. He said around 1950, when he was 17, 18 years old, he said he seen fire coming out of the sky. He never described what it was, and he didn't say an airplane.
Thank
Just-
you,
just
Mr.
a
Zeta.
fire.
That concludes your 5 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Who would have thought?
Mr.
Who
Zeta.
would have thought that this city would burn the store?
Thank you for your time.
This is not finished. I promise you.
Mr. Zeta, thank you for your time.
And I do thank you, all of you. I've been with this subject a long time, every day, every night. Who would have
The next
thought?
person signed up to speak at public
Yes,
forum
ma'am.
is Mr. Robert Burrow. Mr. Burrow? Mr. Burrow.
Who would have thought, goddamn it, excuse the expression, who would have thought?
Is Mr. Burrow present?
Unbelievable. Who
Okay.
would have thought?
Next
Mr.
person
Knoll,
signed
I know
up to
you have nothing
speak.
to do with it. You weren't here in 2012 or in 1993.
Next person signed up to speak is Constance Every. Miss Every?
Again, point of order. Janet Testament was not recused from this council of the body for the people's business, and that is Robert's Rules of Order. So, point of order. I want to start off first by saying happy birthday, Emmett Till. He would have been 85 years old today had it not been for the lies of Carolyn Bryant. I want Knoxville voters to pay attention. You saw the business of your city, and there are a few things that we should raise concerns to. Because India is in re-election season, I'm running against her for this seat, and we need to talk about why India is no longer the appropriate leadership for the city of Knoxville. We'll start at the beginning of the end. Miss Brooklyn Belt, Amelia's right. We've heard the rumors about why this woman left this seat in 4 months. But I find it comically hilarious how when you're asked directly, not by one, but 2 council members for why this woman chose in 4 months such a hiatus exit from her job, we got lies tonight, Knoxville, for the answers. Why can you not just tell the truth on why Miss Belt chose to leave Knoxville? Because as has already been highlighted, we already know by the public that there are definitely internal issues because as she said before, the employees told us these issues. So it's no surprise that Knoxville's fascist, racist bigotry ran Miss Belk off. I don't blame her. I was in conversation with Belk myself, and I warned her, do not become part of the catalog of black faces for white supremacy in Knoxville. They're great at tokenism here, and you don't want to be a part of those issues because you are new here. Don't get caught up in the mess of Knoxville. Hopefully, and it seems like she took great guided advice. Her career is worth too much credential for a clown city like Knoxville, Tennessee. More importantly, let's also talk about the games because y'all continue to play the games. Hey, Knoxville, isn't it true that this council had 4 years? 4 years to come up with creative construction of affordable housing. And now that we're in election season, and Lynn Fugate and a few other folks that went on record talking about they brought affordability to Knoxville, we are now seeing these failed and pathetic attempts to try to savage the last bit of credibility of India's so-called administration and what she thinks she can play our city with, these false allegations of affordability. But we know the facts. Again, as I told you from day one, data has already caught you. 2 recent reports came out. The first one said that Knoxville, you're no longer annually $75,000 or less a year. We now know that if you make $75,000 less a year in Knoxville, you can only afford 12% of the housing market. You know, Victor Jarnigan was at the Motley Crew bragging about jobs that pay $30,000 to $40,000 to $50,000 a year, but he failed to mention the factor that if you make that kind of income, you can only afford 6% or less of the housing market of Knoxville. So again, we are not being realistic about the conversations of affordable housing because in reality, it does not exist. Literally, that's a lie. When y'all go here and say, we got affordable housing in Knoxville. No, you do not. That is a lie. And more importantly, citizens of Knoxville who are paying these rents and mortgages also know it's a lie. We had a property tax assessment adjustment that created 28% increase for an overall increase of 40%. You priced out fixed income members immediately with that formula, and you did not consider those folks. But that's the thing. India has shown her true colors. You know, the newspapers want to write that India's in the lead because India's raised the most money. But India's only in the lead due to just that, money, not votes. She ain't got the same backing that she had a year ago, 4 years ago in this particular election cycle. Only thing her money shows is what we already know. She's backed by the rich. She really thinks she can win this election off of just the rich and the rich West Knoxville particularly. She seems to think that East Knoxville, North Knoxville, and South Knoxville don't have enough members in need and dealing with poverty issues of our community to outvote her wealthy, rich agenda and friends. So I am here to challenge you, Knoxville. Show India that no, she cannot just lean on her rich homies of Randy Boyd and the Hasels and Claytons to get this victory. No, she cannot miss out on public meetings. No, she cannot continue to ignore our voices. No, she cannot continue to act like she's a worker of the community when she don't even work with heart. How many times have you sat down with Rudy East and Battlefield Farms who are dressed in food apartheid in our communities? How often have you met with Nasser Khaledi, Tennessee Harm Reduction, and Sleeps Denise, who's been doing the grassroots trench work of the homelessness? Exactly my point. So when you ask me about how I can work with folks, those are people I work with. But ask India, how many grassroots connections do she have and who does she work with? We have 2 debates coming up, August the 1st and August the 2nd. Be there, Knoxville, because I guarantee you, you don't want to miss it. I yield my time.
Council, that concludes public forum. Without objection, this meeting is adjourned.